Chapter 9 Life of the Early Human Part 2. As we already know that early humans used to eat what they could get in the forest. They used to go from place to place in search of food. They would eat fruits of trees and throw away their seeds. They would have noticed that over a short period of time, after rains, the roots and seeds they had thrown away on the ground had grown into new plants. Thus, they would have got the idea of growing food from seeds. This led to the foundation of farming. Early humans had also made simple tools of stone by this time. They used these tools for digging the earth to sow seeds. Thus, the early humans developed the art of tilling. Later, they started using wooden plows for tilling the land. This made the soil softer and the seeds could grow well. These tools made the cultivation easier. Early humans noticed that some animals were more friendly than others. They stayed quite close to the people. They learned that some of these animals could be tamed. The dog was probably the first animal to be tamed by early humans. It proved very helpful in hunting animals. The early humans had started keeping some other animals also. Cows, buffaloes, goats, and sheep provided them with milk and meat. They used horses and donkeys for riding and carrying their things. They used oxen for plowing the fields. Social life of early human. Now, early humans had to look after their fields and their domestic animals. Therefore, they stopped moving from place to place in search of food. They settled down at one place. They learned to make houses using straw, branches of trees, bamboos, and skins of dead animals. Later, they built rough tents like huts with stones near each other, and this formed a habitation.
This is how the early humans began to lead a social life.
Most of these habitations were near the banks of the river. Early humans settled near the banks of the rivers because they found that the soil was soft and fertile in river valleys. So, it was easy to plow. Also, water was easily available for farming. They could also catch fish in the river for food. They also got water from the river for drinking and bathing. This was the beginning of a village life. Invention of wheel. Early humans had to walk long distances on foot if they had to visit people in another village. They even had to carry heavy things. At this stage, they realized the need for the means of travel. The early humans must have noticed the logs of wood floating on water. They would have found that logs float quite fast down the river. They might have used these logs for swimming. They must have also noticed that the hollow trunks of trees floated easily on water. So they would have cut down the trees and made their trunks hollow. They would have used these hollow trunks for traveling by water. This was probably the first boat used by the early humans. The early humans could make rafts by tying several straight logs of wood. They could move easily on these rafts and could also carry heavy things more easily on them. Early humans often had to travel on foot. Traveling long distances with heavy load must have been difficult for them. So, they would have tied a few sticks of wood together to form a sledge. Initially, the sledge would have been pulled by people. Later on, they would have used animals to pull the sledge. There were no wheels in the sledge, so the sledge could move easily on smooth ground. But it must have been difficult to pull it on an uneven ground. Early humans then would have thought of something better. By far, they noticed that round objects roll down the slope easily. This gave them the idea of putting a round log of wood under a sledge. The sledge began to move easily. Thus, the first wheel would have been invented by humans. They improved on the round log of wood and learned to make better wheels. By putting the wheel under a cart, they made a wheel cart. They began to use wheeled carts to travel from one place to another along with goods. Now, traveling on land became easier and faster. Slowly, the early humans found they could use the wheel for other purposes. They started using the wheel for making earthen pots. This wheel was called the potter's wheel. It is in use even today. Discovering metals. The early humans found that some stones near river banks were harder than others. They melted them in the fire. They got metals from these stones. One of these metals was iron. Iron was the first metal used by the early humans, followed by copper. They made strong and sharp tools from these metals. As time passed, the habitations of the early humans became bigger. People in large numbers started living at one place. Sometimes they would have quarreled with each other. Therefore, certain rules were made for living in peace, called laws. Everyone had to obey these laws. It was the starting of human civilization, where life became more comfortable, disciplined, and peaceful. Humans continued to make progress. They invented new means of transport like bicycle, scooter, car, bus, train, ship, and aeroplane. They also developed means of communication such as radio, television, telephone, telegraph, fax, and telex. All these new inventions have made humans' life very comfortable. Let's understand. Foundation, base or groundwork. Habitation, a place where people live. Invented, created or developed. Recap. Early humans learned to do farming and settled down near the river banks. They started domesticating animals. The early humans used hollow trunks of trees for boats and rafts. The invention of wheel brought a big change in the life of the early humans. Iron was the first metal to be used by the early humans.